This slide is the underlying ideas of what we're trying to accomplish with MTSS. I believe that UDL has to be put in place even before you do MTSS, because no matter what we do, we're not fixing all learners. These are the philosophical and where I was at in my career that promoted me and convinced me to control others to help us with this. The path is the way that I thought we would move through providing literacy supports in the school. Eventually, I never changed the name, but it became to describe the tiers that we were trying to implement at school. So this book here is a book that I read, and it kind of changed the way I thought about things. And if you look up here at this graph, you want to be in this is called the turning point zone of desired effects, which is 0.4. And Hattie argues that this 0.4 effect leads to greater output and greater success. So for example, MTSS was 104, but if you go in here to the chart now, that number has actually increased to 127, I think. And the size of the effect for something like vocabulary is 67%. So I started coming to terms with, I want to do things that are going to have the greatest effect on students so that we can have more powerful interventions along the way. The two quotes here, one here and the other one here, basically talk about, this first one talks about sorting, but if you don't do anything else, when we collect data, we just sort, and that doesn't solve any problems. And here, this one in the report on inclusion talks about how teachers are so frustrated with data collection. And when I reviewed the report on inclusion, there were only, I think, 5 references to data in the whole document, and the province didn't refer to it anymore either. And yet, it's the heart of MTSS. You can't do it without data. So it's the biggest challenge that teachers are going to have to face with this process. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to reduce the amount of data collection teachers did. So I found this program, the RIP, which is used as part of the Fast for Word or Scientific Learnings program. And we administered it to every grade 5 student. And then we started triangulating the data with other common assessments that we used. For example, running records. You'll see on the next page, we use another piece of software. And it gave us a way to start measuring impacts and start seeing how things were being affected. The main effect of RIP was we didn't have to mark it. It took 45 minutes, usually in the beginning of the year, to administer. We administer it 3 times. But it could have been any other tool. We just wanted to reduce that manual gathering of the assessments, because that's what were killing teachers with time and energy. We all started to read. And when we started collecting our data, what we saw was no surprise. Phonological awareness was a difficulty for kids. We decided to implement it in here, the green zone. So this is this level here. We picked Squiggle Park. It was a grade 2 assessment as far as what they were concerned, but it really hit all of the phonological awareness issues. By implementing this program alone, we saw a 10% increase in phonological awareness amongst all the students. And what we were surprised with was that some students who were reading at grade level had very poor phonological awareness. When we gave them Squiggle Park, and then we added another program, the reading comprehension program here, again, another one from Squiggle Park, it's called Dreamscape. Some students, those two interventions were enough in this green zone. They moved on their own. And the impact wasn't pretty impressive. This year we've decided to add Spell City. The cost was pretty cheap per student, and it gave them vocabulary and spelling options. And as we were able to differentiate, this is going to be much more powerful. They're saying they argue that they're a very effective resource, 21.5% increase. I don't think we're going to see that much from that program by itself. However, it's really messy with vocabulary, although we know it's really important for readers to be able to read. It's not very effective on how, it's not very clear on how effective we can be when we add technology to it or even traditional ways of implementing it. What's going to work, we're not sure yet. In Tier 2, small group, we try not to think of it in those terms because, for example, this program that we're going to do here, Reading Assistance Plus, can't be done inside a classroom, yet what we're doing is not really a Tier 3 support. The intensity of it isn't there. But it works on comprehension, fluency, reading speed. So those are really important skills in order to help students kind of finish off where they're at. And we noticed that comprehension was really low. So we offered this kind of support where they have to listen to the paragraph or read it themselves. They record themselves reading it, and then they answer questions at the end. And they're given a fluency number to hit. We saw some major gains from kids who would never have received that kind of support. It's part of the Fast Forward suite. You can't get it on its own. You have to get Fast Forward itself, and then you get Reading Assistance Plus, but they freed up the license. So we saw some students gain 2 years in reading comprehension. Parents were upset with us first because they go, my child is reading. And we're going, yes, your child is reading. But their comprehension and fluency could be better. Now, another program that does a decent job of that, except we were losing our voice, is Read Theory. And we use that right now primarily in with IPPs, but I'd have no problem using it with a regular class. It's free, and students get reading adjusted material after they do a 12 passage test, and they gives them recommended readings at their level. They answer the comprehension questions. So it definitely would be a pretty good support if you wanted to use it. So basically, that's kind of what we tried to do as a Tier 2 support. There are other Tier 2 things that we continue to add that would work in small groups because, like I showed you before, Spell City would be an example of that. But it can be done in the classroom. We are now approaching the top of the pyramid. In Tier 3, this is where your most intense supports are going to land. And again, using computer technology, we landed on Fast Forward. We started out with 6 licenses a few years back. We've grown through support of Jordan's principle to 14 now. And plus, we have the Reading Assistance Plus programs. So at any one time, we are able to provide 14 students with an intense remedial support that is delivered to 14 students between 30 and 50-minute increments. This is what the results look like when you get them back. And this fall has been incredible. Of the 8 finishers of the 14 that we started, 7 have scored over 1, which is awesome. We had one finish today, and he was at 0.5, which is half a year, in 40 days. And one student who went into the negative. They're more likely the results we see usually. However, we see more positive results after the assessment and the program finishes. So we reassess them like a year later or at the end of a term after they haven't done fast forward, and their scores go up, which is pretty pleasing. So it's a very intense, it's a hard program. There's lots of in there for us to work through. The other program that we do that would be a tier 3 is rewards reading, which was done in small groups, and it takes about 14 weeks and an hour approximately. Now, some people get through it in 30 minutes, but it's coming pretty quick at you. I've had success with this program too. The problem is that, it's normally 3 students. So it's what you typically see, 3 to 5 students, what you typically see in resource. Last year, with the use of some gaming technologies, we did 5 lessons before COVID with a whole class in grade 7 who were not taking immersion or core or integrated French in grade 7. So the vast majority of them needed this programming. And it was early to say, but the design was possible to deliver rewards. So this is why when you talk about stage 1, 2, 3, it can be really hard to think about, because here we were delivering a stage 3 support in a stage 1 environment. So it's pretty challenging. I'm going to skip down here and skip Linda Mood. We did Nessie. And what's interesting about Nessie is it's synthetic phonics. And so it's a different way of doing things. I bought the licenses when I first came to Redcliffe, not really understanding synthetic phonics. I love the Nessie program. I don't have any data to say how effective it is, but I really like the strategies. And actually, with the rewards reading, I included the videos from Nessie in that because I thought the strategies are really good. And then one of our teachers is trained in Linda Mood Bell, and we like Linda Mood Bell. But what we're hoping to do is really limit it. It would be the very tippy-toppy of the pyramid because of how much time it takes and how much work it takes. It's a small group of 2 to 3 students. It's intense, 30 minutes every day. So we try not to deliver it only to those that have no other choice of support. There are other tools that you obviously could use, but these were the ones that we picked. We have measurements for them. And after the first year of doing this, the kids that we assessed in grade 5, when we left in March of last year, one class had gained 1.1 reading level by the middle of March, and the other class had gained 7.7, which is 7 months. We believe what we're doing is effective, but this is our second year. Our grade 5s are significantly lower than our grade 5s were last year. And we're trying to track the results to see where we're at, which I'll be talking about next class. Thank you for your time and attention.